Picture this: President William Ruto standing tall at the UN General Assembly, preaching Africa's case for global power. His words echo with ambition, reforming the UN Security Council, shaking up world finance. But behind him, his own delegation snacking on peanuts like they are at a Nairobi matatu stop. The internet is exploding, Kenyans are fuming, and the world is watching. Was this a diplomatic disaster or a storm in a teacup? Buckle up, because Kenya's UNGA moment is a wild ride of pride, pettiness, and politics.
The global standard collapsed 5 decades ago, and Europe has long since been rebuilt. Yet, the governance of these institutions has not kept pace with needs of a multipolar world, especially the needs of poor and developing nations. The mismatch between shareholders and stakeholders has become starkly visible.
On September 24, 2025, Ruto took the podium at the UNGA General Debate in New York, a stage where world leaders flex their influence. The hall, with its 1,800 seats, buzzed with the Better Together theme, hosting over 150 heads of state. Ruto's slot around 3 p.m. on day 2 came after heavyweights like Ukraine's Zelensky and Iran's Pezeshkian. He didn't hold back, demanding 2 permanent African seats on the UN Security Council for 54 nations and 1.4 billion people, a new global financial architecture, and spotlighting Kenya's Haiti mission. It was a speech crafted to cement Kenya as Africa's voice. But here's the catch: while the UN lauded the content, Kenyans are watching the vibes, and they weren't impressed.
During the IMF's recent allocation of special drawing rights, 64% went to wealthy nations. Just imagine, 64%. With little need for liquidity support. They didn't need the money anyway, but they got 64%. While the poorer countries received just 2.4%. What a disconnect. The imbalance highlights how the very institutions meant to safeguard global finance stability often perpetuate inequality and instability.
Let us talk about the penis that broke the internet. Halfway through Ruto's 15-minute speech, UN Web TV cameras panned to Kenya's front row delegation, about 70 strong, including Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, Mining Cabinet Secretary Hassan Joho, and ex-Governor Mike Sonko. At least 3 delegates were caught red-handed, casually popping what ex-users dubbed, quote, njugu karanga ya New York, into their mouth. The clips, now with 15,000 plus views on X, show them munching for minutes, oblivious to the global live stream. Mudavadi stayed stoic, but Joho and Sonko stole the show. Was it hunger for a long day? UNGA sessions ran 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. with scarce breaks, and light snacking isn't banned. But in the front row, under the world's eyes, it was like eating mandazi during a State House briefing. Tone deaf.
Priorities and allocation mechanisms consistently favor those already prosperous, while trapping vulnerable economies in cycles of debt, high borrowing costs, and inadequate access to emergency support and concessional funding. It is imperative to transform these institutions into genuinely independent, apolitical global bodies that their operations are aligned with their global mandate. Such a shift would democratize decision-making, restore credibility, and allow the IMF and the World Bank to serve all countries fairly rather than reinforcing old hierarchies.
Now, the empty hall drama. Ex-post screamed that Ruto spoke to a ghost town, fueling memes of Kenya's global humiliation. The truth, the hall had about 200-400 delegates, about 25% of the capacity, typical for a mid-afternoon slot. Day 1 pulls crowds for US or Brazil, but day 2, leaders are off cutting deals in bilateral meetings. Ruto himself had 10, including with the US and UAE. Photos from UPI show Africa Union and European blocs listening intently, with applause on UN Web TV. Compared to Zelensky's past crowd, noted by Reuters. Ruto's turnout was par from the course, but for Kenyans, optics are everything. A half-empty hall, even if standard, feels like a slide when you are battling for global respect.
Africa is no longer willing to wait on the margins of global governance while decisions about peace, security, and development are made without our understanding, without our perspectives, and without our voice. Africa deserves, ladies and gentlemen, at the very least, 2 permanent seats with full rights, including the right to veto, and 2 additional non-permanent seats on the United Nations Security Council. But Africa is not merely waiting for external prescriptions. We are taking bold and deliberate steps to strengthen our financial independence, safeguard our stability, and accelerate our development. Kenya, for instance, fully endorses the establishment of the Alliance of African Multilateral Financial Institutions, launched with the Africa Union in February 2024.
The mood in the hall was professional. Diplomats clapped, some nodded, others checked phones as UNGA goes. Ruto's delivery was fiery. His reform calls earning coverage from AI, Jazeera, and All Africa. But back home, the vibe was chaos. X lit up with 50+ posts in 24 hours, 90% roasting the delegation. Here is the intellectual jab. Kenya's obsession with UNGA optics isn't just about peanuts or turnout. It is about a nation wrestling with its global identity. Ruto's speech was a masterclass in ambition, but the delegation garb and sparse crowd fed a narrative of disconnect. Kenyans want to be seen as serious players, not snack time sideshows. The UN doesn't care. Its focus is Ruto's policy push, not Joho's njugu. But at home, where every move is politicized, this moment risks overshadowing Kenya's Haiti leadership or UNSC reform bid. It is a classic case of substance versus symbolism, and Kenya is eating both for breakfast.
Africa's continued exclusion is unacceptable and indefensible. At 80, the UN's credibility will be judged by whether it finally recognizes and delivers justice and representation for the 1.4 billion people of the African continent.
So, was this a diplomatic flop or a distraction? Ruto's team needs to address the optics, maybe a statement, maybe a meme of their own. Kenyans, you tell me, is this outrage justified, or are we missing the forest for the peanuts? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. For Maisha TV, I'm William Juma.